Hi Lesley, how are you doing?
I'm fine, Charlene. Thanks for asking yourself.
So for anybody in the organisation who hasn't met us, I'm Charlene Tate and I'm the Deputy CEO and you are?
I'm Lesley Lee and I'm the Residences Manager at New Strewn.
Yeah. So thanks for doing this, Lesley. I thought it would be quite good if every so often we had a wee bit of practice patter, a bit of chat about what's going on in our services. And I know that you had a really interesting learning situation with one of the children that you support in the residencies. And I thought it was a brilliant example of how we're moving from that kind of behaviour led, reactive type of practice to the much more relation based, low arousal, stress reduction practice. So, do you want to share with us what happened and what you learned?
So what we've tried to do with this young person is really look at how do we reduce stress for we know transitions are particularly difficult for this young person. So how do we make that less stressful? So we really kind of unpicked what a day looked like and changed it and put more relaxation, etc. in that. And that does work, but we still struggle at transition. It can be micro transition, just walking through a doorway can be enough. And the most popular is usually when it's staff changeover. So what we find with that young person is they will start to scream. She will ask for staff to come closer. When staff go closer, she then will grab them because she's very, very stressed. So just through looking at the kind of wellbeing model, we're looking at the environment, how do we make the environment quieter? And staff were thinking about like wash machines, tumble dryers, but actually we are part of the environment.
That's the thing.
It was getting that, it was through observations that I picked it up and I said to the guys, right, let's not move, nobody speak. So we had already cut the verbal, but they were still moving about. So I said, right, let's not move, let's not change any environment. So we done that when she became particularly stressed. She was screaming and she bites her hand, bangs her head off the door. And it is quite upsetting to watch, and staff will naturally want to go fix that. You want to help somebody when they're in it, and it really is difficult to stand and watch that. But what I found is if we don't move and don't have any interaction, there is no noise in the environment or it's minimised as much as possible, then the behaviour will stop quicker. But also what I found is just through observation is that when she's starting to return to baseline behaviour, she will engage in, like, she'll tap or knock something, or she'll make a clicking noise with her tongue against the roof of her mouth. So when I was observing her one time, I noticed her doing that, and I had done it back to her, and then so it went back and forth, and I knew then that she was ready to move on and engage in a positive manner, and that worked. And I thought, oh, maybe that's a fluke first time. But the next time she done it, she actually, when she was coming back, she started chapping on the wall, and I signalled to the member of the staff, chap on the worktop. So the member of the staff chapped on the worktop, and the other young person knocked, and it went back and forward, and then you can start verbal, oh, what you want to have for your lunch, and you just move it on to the next part of a visual routine. So it was just through observing, and that we have found that really works, and that's the approach we now use for that young person. But it was the biggest part, it was everybody's the environment. It's not just the wash machine or the kettle, or it's things like it's us, and us no moving is really, really helpful. And it also actually helps the staff, because they're not becoming stressed having to go, oh, I have to fix this situation. They're, back, and they're able to think, right, what am I going to do next when she starts to return to baseline? What does that look like for me, and what's that interaction going to be? And they have really learned not to use like verbal, and because it's really too much to process. And if she's not right back at baseline and the staff start to speak to her, she just spikes straight back up again. So like see the noises, the clicking of your tongue and or tapping at the table, that is her way of communicating that I'm finished and I'm ready to move on. And it's actually, it's quite good because then we're waiting for that cue now, so staff need to be quiet to pick it up.
Yeah. It's a really important point, isn't it, that actually often the most unpredictable thing in the environment is the other people, and that when we think about the environment, yes, the light and then the noise and all of that's important, but we're important too, and particularly, you know, what our staff are very animated and very engaging because, you know, a lot of our children and adults respond to that. So that's really rich learning. The other thing it struck me that happened there was kind of validating her way of communicating. Mm-hmm. Whereas we might say, okay, I feel better now, I'm calmed down. It's her clicking or her tapping. And that was like, you're giving real meaning to that for her. It's really validating it. Is that what it felt like?
It did. It because you could see her really engaging in it. It's, for the young person, it's really a positive thing. She doesn't want you to speak and say, are you all right, or let's go do that. It's still too much at that stage, so that clicking or tapping is she'll kind of keep it going, especially if it's a knock, and she'll kind of keep that going for a wee while, and that's totally fine. If you do the clicking, then she'll go like as if, oh, silly me, and then that's quite positive actually, doesn't it, look at it, but for her, and she kind of gets a laugh with that. And so yeah, but it was really kind of a light bulb moment, if you like, watching that, and it really has worked out really well.
Which is brilliant. So for the staff that are, and colleagues that are watching this and thinking, well, somebody in my service doesn't do that, but there's some principles there, isn't there? So what would be your top tips from that situation for colleagues that are watching?
It's just to step back, to allow the person to have that moment where it looks like they're hurting or that loss of control. Sometimes people just need to let that out, and just because they may be frustrated. That is the biggest part, is standing watching that, because staff are fixers and they want to fix that, and you can see them desperate to go in, and it is really hard to step and say, wait a minute, let's no speak and let's just let that happen. So I think that would be the hardest part. Yeah, but although it's the hardest part, it's also the strongest part, because then the person can work through it and then they get to the end quite well quicker than if you're going to intervene, I have found anyway. So we've actually kind of taken that approach into working with all the young people, and try and see what's their communication and when they're stressed. But certainly the stress reduction is the biggest part, definitely.
Yeah.
How do we manage that?
That's brilliant, Lesley. Thanks so much for that insight, and I'm hoping that it'll encourage other people to come and talk to me about the practice, and we can get a wee blether going every so often about how we're using these. Sometimes they feel like big ideas and difficult to kind of process ideas, but really what you're saying there is about just, you know, that take a step back, let a person be in the moment, think stress reduction, and just try a sort of different approach. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Lesley.
Right, thanks.